Before watching the video, please take 3 seconds to like the video and subscribe to the channel so I have more motivation to release more high-quality videos. Thank you very much, and have a happy new day. A mission in another world opens up. The richest person in the apocalypse, as the name suggests. The scene outside was chaotic and ruined. The sky was as red as fire, seemingly able to burn everything on Earth. The sound of gunfire echoed endlessly from somewhere, startling her awake from her sleep. She rubbed her eyes and thought, "Where's the gunfire coming from?" She then sat up, looked around in all 4 directions, and whispered, "Where am I?" But at this moment, the gunfire outside grew more intense, making her cover her ears and scratch her head, saying, "So noisy to death." Now fully awake, Gu Chu-jung thought to herself that it seemed she had encountered some broken system that told her she was dead. She fell silent, hugging herself, and pondered further. She had to complete a mission to go back. Then, Gu Chu-jung slowly stood up and said, "So where's this place?" Walking to the window and peering outside, she widened her eyes at the zombies outside. At this moment, her head felt dizzy, her vision darkened, and she said, "What did I just see? Zombies? Is this a mistake?" The one who had been mentioned just now appeared. The system held up cheer props, smiled brightly, and said, "Welcome, older sister, to the apocalypse world." Then it quickly continued, "Memories of the previous life have been sealed." Of course, I am a personified system. If you want to know anything, you can look it up at will. Hearing the system ramble, she glared at the person next to her with a murderous look, crossed her arms, and said, "No need, I already know the overall process." Hearing Gu Chu-jung say that, the system explained, "This world requires a large capacity of crystal cores, which are not easy to carry around." After that, it pulled out a bag and continued, "This is a space bag, it can store food." After getting a clear look at the item, she reached out to take it and said, "Is it mine?" Hearing that, the system quickly waved its hands and said, No, this is only lent to older sister." Then it waved its hand, and 10 good person cards appeared. It smiled brightly and said, "If older sister wants to own it, you only need 10 good person cards." Hearing the price she had to pay for the space bag, her face darkened, her body trembled, and she gripped the bag tightly, saying, "10 cards?" Hearing her gloomy voice, the system raised a white flag, waved it continuously, and held out its 3-fingered hand. It lowered its voice to negotiate. 5 cards. Can't be lower. Spotting a loophole, she glanced at the person next to her and said, "You dropped 3. After a moment, the bag let out a soft ding-dong sound, indicating it had automatically bound to the host successfully. On the space bag, the text about Gu Chu-jung now appeared. Seeing this, the system's anger flared up. It put its hands on its hips, looked at the person in front of it unwillingly, and said, "Automatic binding? This is unscientific. It must be a dirty bug." Seeing the system burning with anger, Gu Chu-jung gripped the space bag tightly and said, "Now it's mine. Hurry up and tell me, what mission do I need to do?" Hearing this, the system felt extremely helpless. Poking its 2 index fingers together, it opened the system, which was loading the plot, and said, "Please receive." After the loading finished, the plot of this world appeared in the air. The original host was a university student who grew up in an orphanage, determined to be a successor of socialism. Then, the image of the original host in this world appeared. She was studying hard and taking notes. But at this time, the unexpected happened. The apocalypse arrived. The image showed the original host using all her strength to run away from a horde of zombies. Then a new plot point appeared. The original host met the beautiful and kind Ningyu, who had awakened supernatural abilities. The 2 quickly became good friends. At this moment, Ningyu's image appeared. She reached her hand out toward the original host. But suddenly, a zombie grabbed her hand. The original host didn't expect Ningyu to be so good to her. However, Ningyu's action was not to break free from the zombie's grasp and run away with the original host. Instead, she quickly snatched the necklace from the original host's neck. The reason was solely for the jade pendant that the original host had always worn. Having snatched the thing she wanted, she smiled eerily and quickly blocked that piece of jade. Later, thanks to the jade pendant that represented the identity of the long-lost daughter of the base leader, Ningyu is now protected by the elites in the base. At this moment, she stood on the roof of a car, pushed the original host down into the horde of zombies, and excitedly screamed, "Go to hell." As for the original host, she cried out in terror, don't. After being bitten, the original host survived the disaster, but Ningyu used the excuse that she was infected to lock her in a laboratory as a test subject until her death. Then came the image of the original host lying on a bed with a body covered in wires and a breathing tube. At this moment, after hearing the plot, Gu Chu-jung clicked her tongue lightly. With a gloomy face, she said, "That is too tragic." Hearing that, the system quickly appeased the person in front of it. "Older sister, if it wasn't tragic, we wouldn't need you." Hearing this, her fighting spirit ignited. Gu Chu-jung forcefully cracked her knuckles and said, "If you want to counterattack, then just getting rid of her will do." Seeing her murderous aura, the system stopped her. "Older sister, you can't. If you get rid of her, you'll be sent back there." Hearing the system say that, she was dumbfounded. Seeing that, it conjured up a drawing board, drew a strategy, and explained, now the best plan is to snatch the jade pendant back, expose Ningyu, and make Ningyu suffer days of agony. But at this moment, Gu Chu-jung returned to the bed and prepared to lie down. Seeing this, the system was bewildered and asked, older sister, what are you doing?" Gu Chu-jung turned the other way and answered, "Sleeping. What else is there to do?" Hearing the answer, it said, "But this place has already been surrounded by zombies. Shouldn't we run for our lives?" Receiving the question, she didn't open her eyes but buried her head and replied, "Preserving health is very important." Suddenly, at this moment, there was the sound of banging on the door outside. The system was terrified and threw itself into her arms, flailing its arms and legs wildly, saying, "Help. The zombies are here," but was quickly pushed away by her. She yelled angrily, "Get out of the way. Don't disturb my rest." Suddenly, at this time, a new mission appeared. Within 2 hours, spend 50 crystal cores. The crystal cores have been placed in the space bag. Please check and receive. Upon receiving the mission, she held the system with both hands, her head dizzy. She now also lifted the trembling system up and said, "In this situation, where am I supposed to go to spend those 50 crystal cores? Will the zombies outside take the things in their brains?" But outside at this time, a group of people kicked open the door of Gu Chu-jung's room, walked in holding weapons, and interrupted the conversation between her and the system. A large man holding a gun yelled, "Don't move." Behind him, a group of people also slowly walked in. Seeing the people walk in, a thought flashed through her mind. There's a way. At this moment, in Gu Chu-jung's room, 3 men burst in, and one of them held a weapon pointing straight at her as she sat on the bed. At this time, the man wearing glasses next to him, who was the thinker in charge, Yishao, quickly reminded him, "Bao, be careful. She might have a weapon." At this time, she also sat up, fumbling in her pillow looking for something. The person reminded by Yishao was the one in charge of combat, known in the underworld as a Bao. He also looked at her, his hands still tightly gripping the gun, and warned, "Beauty, I told you not to move. Didn't you hear me?" At this time, the remaining person, the coward in charge, Xia Chung, goaded a Bao. "A Bao, hurry up and shoot. She's looking for a gun." On this side, after she found the item she needed, she also put on her slippers. Then she casually waved her hand, and a pile of crystal cores fell onto the table. But before the people in front of her could say anything, Gu Chu-jung sat down on a chair and voiced a negotiation. "Trade?" At this time, Yishao also approached, pointed at the pile of crystal cores on the table, and said, "A Bao, these look like crystal cores." Xia Chung, next to him, put his hands in his pockets and spoke up, "There must be dozens of them. We struck it rich." But a Bao couldn't help but be suspicious and looked at her like a demon. Then he gathered in a circle with the others and said, "She's just a weak girl who can't even tie up a chicken. How can she have so many crystal cores?" Yishao next to him also quickly said, "With this many, how many zombies would one have to kill? This is too bizarre." Xia Chung next to him echoed, "With so many, we can let a Bao upgrade, right? What does she want to trade with us?" Hearing this, a Bao also nodded and said, "Should we ask and see?" Seeing the 3 people in front of her constantly whispering, Gu Chu-jung picked up a crystal core and said impatiently, "Are we trading or not?" Hearing her speak, a Bao asked, "What do you want to trade with us?" Receiving the question, she didn't answer right away but asked back, "What do you guys have?" Hearing that, Yishao pulled out his backpack and said, "It's all in here." Inside the backpack were a few cans of water and some personal items. Seeing the pile of stuff, Gu Chu-jung couldn't help but put on a disgusted expression and judged, "So poor. Trade all these food items with me, and I'll give all these crystal cores to you guys." Hearing that, a Bao smiled brightly, put all the crystal cores into the backpack, quickly closed it, and said, "Thank you, boss." The next day, outside was now desolate and ruined. The three of them were walking together on the road. Yishao asked, Abao, are there any more zombies? Hearing the person next to him ask, Abao confidently answered, don't be afraid. We absorbed all the crystal cores yesterday. My strength has also increased. Just as he mentioned zombies, the zombies appeared. They constantly let out growls. Seeing this, Yishao broke out in a cold sweat, looked at the horde of zombies in front of him, and said, Abao, what do we do? There's zombies. The person called next to him also had his face darkened. Then he quickly turned and ran away, not forgetting to say, hurry up, run to the left. The other two also quickly stuck close behind. At this time, at the intersection, cars were overturned, accompanied by a few streaks of blood, and a horde of zombies was swarming around two cars. Then, out of nowhere, a red off-road vehicle appeared, taking the corner perfectly under the sluggish eyes of the zombies. That car quickly stopped in front of the three people. Gu Chu Zheng, sitting in the car, called out, get in. Seeing this, all three hurriedly got into the car. As soon as they closed the doors, the surrounding zombies quickly approached, but they were already knocked down to the road by her car. The car quickly sped off down the road. Abao from the back leaned forward, looked at Gu Chu Zheng, and said, it's you. Thank you. At this time, she drove the car while throwing a bag of crystal cores to the back and said, here are 100 crystal cores. I'm hiring you guys to guide the way to Qing'an Base. Hearing this, Abao looked at her blankly and asked again, hire us? Then he affirmed, little sister, look at the three of us. We can hardly protect ourselves. We don't have the ability to lead you to such a far place. Hearing the person behind say that, Gu Chu Zheng only coldly replied, I just want to squander my fortune and conveniently find people who could drive for me. There are only you three alive here. I can't be picky. Hearing that, the three men in the back huddled together. Abao crossed his arms, looked towards her, and said, is this woman stupid? Yishao, sitting in the middle, also pondered and added, no matter what, would the three of us men be afraid of a girl like her? But the one who seemed the most abnormal, Xia Cheng, also spoke up. Could it be that she has fallen for our looks? After a moment of thought, Yishao gestured towards Abao and introduced him to her. He is our Abao, the only one with supernatural abilities in our team. Then he put his arm around the person next to him and continued, this guy is Xia Cheng. His memory is very impressive. He can remember all the maps of cities across the whole country. Then he looked towards Gu Chu Zheng and introduced himself. My name is Yishao. What is your name? Receiving the question, she only indifferently said, Chu Zheng. At this time, the system suddenly appeared and said, detected a good person card. The target distance is less than 1 kilometer. Then, a new mission quickly appeared. Please, older sister, complete the hidden mission. Gain a good person card. Stop Lu Ran from turning dark. Just as it finished transmitting, the system was grabbed by her and lifted up like a little teddy bear. She said sternly, are you kidding me? On this side, at a warehouse, a group of people surrounded a young man, criticizing him vigorously. A woman spoke up, you got bitten. Why didn't you say anything? Are you trying to get us all killed? Another person added, if someone hadn't noticed, we would be done for. Hearing that, someone else said in shock, really? I was standing so close to him just now. Scared me to death. Then a voice rang out, kill him. Being bitten means he'll definitely turn into a zombie. Team 5 has so many of us. If he turns into a zombie, he'll bite us. Then we're dead. The harsh words of the people around surrounded him. But the young man bitten by the zombie just sat motionless on the ground. His face gradually darkened, bearing many large and small wounds. Then from the outside, another voice rang out, let him leave on his own. At this time, a long-haired man leaned against the wall, crossed his arms, and timidly said to the young man, Lu Ran, for the sake of the overall situation, why don't you leave on your own? Don't make things difficult for everyone. The woman standing next to him also tugged at the man's shirt and said, Senior, no need for that. We can tie him up. What if he doesn't turn into a zombie, but awakens a supernatural ability? Hearing that, the man embarrassedly said, the rate of awakening a supernatural ability is very low. Besides, it's not up to me to decide right now. Look at the people around here. If we keep him, the ones being chased away will be us. Hearing this, her tears kept falling as she blamed herself, thinking, I'm sorry, Lu Ran. Even though you were bitten because you saved me, but I can't be driven away. I can't save you. On this side, a water bottle was thrown and hit Lu Ran directly on the head. The two guys who threw the water cursed at him, get lost quickly, you zombie. The people next to them also joined in. Get as far away as possible. Go away. Being treated like this, he only slightly twitched his lips in a disdainful smile, then stood up and said, extremely ignorant. At this time, Lu Ran no longer bowed his head, but looked straight at the crowd surrounding him. With one hand on his waist, he showed none of his previous gloomy appearance. The two who threw the water bottles earlier were a little scared and quickly stepped back. One of them pointed at him while retreating and said, what do you want to do? But Lu Ran didn't care. He just turned around to leave, not forgetting to glance at the people who had just cursed him and said, good luck to you all. Goodbye. After that, Lu Ran left the warehouse and wandered on the street under the setting sun. While he was wandering aimlessly, Gu Chuzheng's bright red off-road vehicle also drove by. At this time, the car kept driving parallel to him. Inside, the system sitting on the steering wheel pointed in Lu Ran's direction and said, older sister, the good person card has appeared. Act quickly. Hearing it say that, the car immediately stopped. She rolled down the window, looked at the person walking outside, and asked Lu Ran, being called by someone else. He looked over at her and asked in confusion, do you know me? However, I have nothing on me. If you want to rob me, you found the wrong person. Hearing Lu Ran say that, she just slowly got off the car, looked at the person in front of her, and said, are you getting in? Seeing the other party say that, he was stunned. Then, he quickly rolled up his sleeve where he was bitten by the zombie and asked, are you sure you won't let me in the car? I've been bitten. Then he looked at Gu Chuzheng and continued, don't tell me you think I can awaken a supernatural ability? Seeing that Lu Ran still seemed guarded, she just said a word to a Bao and then got into the car. A Bao, knock him out. Receiving the order, a Bao cracked his knuckles and walked toward him. Then he looked at the person in front of him and advised, buddy, just obediently come with us. Seeing that the person in front of him was almost twice his size, he was a bit intimidated. Seeing that the other party still had no intention of getting in, a Bao immediately swung his hand. Seeing this, Lu Ran said, this isn't some kidnapping van, is it? But before he could finish, he was knocked unconscious by a Bao strike. After he fainted, a Bao tossed him into the car like a sandbag. At this time, Gu Chuzheng's off-road vehicle was speeding down the road. In the backseat of the car were her, Lu Ran, and Yi Xiao. Yi Xiao sat next to him, pressing his body tightly against the car door in fear. Suddenly, his body tilted toward Yi Xiao, scaring the guy into pushing Lu Ran away with his hands while constantly saying, go away. My meat doesn't taste good, don't bite me. Yi Xiao's push was quite strong, causing him to fall directly onto Gu Chuzheng's shoulder, who was sitting on the other side. Seeing this, her face darkened. She glared at the person next to her, frowned, and said, do you want to die? Then, just as she was about to push the person off her body, the system appeared and reminded her, older sister, you can't push him away. You must be gentle with the good person card. Seeing the person beside her remind her, she didn't hesitate to give it a murderous glare, but still pulled her hand back and said, shut up. Have you found his information? Receiving the question, the system immediately provided Gu Chuzheng with the information. Lu Ran is a recognized school heartthrob. After the apocalypse began, he didn't have any supernatural abilities. Later, in order to save a female teammate, he was bitten by a zombie. He was despised and driven out by the other teammates. While lying unconscious outside with a high fever, he was rescued by a girl and awakened his supernatural ability. Because of her life-saving grace, Lu Ran treated her extremely well, but this girl was not a good person either. She was a two-timer who only knew how to use Lu Ran. Lu Ran probably felt that life was too difficult, so he just turned dark like that. Hearing the information provided by the system, she also looked at the person next to her and said softly, although it's a bit tragic, this turning dark is too arbitrary. Now that I've picked him up, he won't meet that girl, so he won't turn dark anymore, right? Suddenly at this time, a person in the car spoke up, Sister Zheng, it seems he's waking up. At this moment, Lu Ran, who was resting his head on Gu Chuzheng's shoulder, gradually opened his eyes. Receiving the notification, she used her gloomy expression to lean close to the person next to her's face, crossed her arms, and reminded him, if you're awake, get up quickly. My shoulder's totally numb. Hearing her say that, his face instantly flushed red. He then quickly sat up, rubbed his head with one hand, and said shyly, I'm sorry. At this time, Xia Cheng, sitting in the passenger seat, asked with interest, how do you feel? As for Yi Xiao sitting next to him, he was trembling with fear, hugging the door tightly, and stuttered, Do you have the urge to bite people? Receiving the question from the person next to him, Lu Ran put on an evil look and replied, a little bit. Hearing the answer, the guy became even more afraid. He immediately rolled down the window and continuously called for help. Help! Help! Let me out. Seeing the expression of the person beside him made Lu Ran unable to hold back, and he burst out laughing. Ha ha. Realizing he had been maliciously teased, Yi Zhao's whole body turned cold as ice. With a dark expression, he looked at him, crossed his arms, and said, "This joke is not funny at all." Hearing that, he smiled and replied, "I'm sorry. I couldn't resist teasing you guys. After all, you all seem to be very brave." On this side, Gu Chuzheng also asked him, "How long have you been bitten?" Seeing the person next to him ask, he looked over, thought for a moment, and replied, about 28 hours. Hearing him say that, Yi Xiao also said, thinking optimistically, "Maybe you have awakened your supernatural ability." Hearing that, she also added, "It could also be that the incubation period is long." Hearing her say that, Yi Xiao couldn't help but wonder, so what exactly did Sister Zheng pick him up for? As for the main character being talked about all this time, he could only give an awkward smile, but didn't lose his manners. After a while, Lu Ren also looked over at her and couldn't help but ask, "Why did you want to let me in the car?" Receiving the question, she clenched both hands, put on her kind appearance, and said, "Because I have to be a good person." After speaking, Gu Chuzheng turned to the person next to her and asked, "Do you think I'm a good person?" Upon hearing the question, the atmosphere in the car became unusual. Everyone stared at the self-proclaimed good person with bewildered and absent-minded faces, followed by non-stop bursts of laughter from the group of three, including a bow. Lu Ran also shyly rubbed his head and smiled. As for Gu Chuzheng, being laughed at, her face darkened completely. Over here, Yi Xiao laughed heartily while saying, "Being a good person in this apocalypse. You sure dare to say that." Xia Cheng, sitting in the front, also looked at her and chimed in, "Were there any good people in the apocalypse?" Lu Ran, sitting beside her, also looked at Gu Chuzheng with confusion and said, "You don't even know what kind of person I am, yet you dare to bring me into the car. You're quite bold." Hearing the person next to her say that, she crossed her arms and said, "Aren't you someone who was kicked out without a penny to your name, left with only half a life?" Hearing her say that, Lu Ran blushed and replied, "Although it hurts a bit to hear, thank you anyway." At this time, the system appeared wearing a pair of cool sunglasses and said, "Main quest, spend 500 crystal cores within 3 hours. Then, it sat on her shoulder and continued, "Older sister, this is your punishment for showing no mercy and getting angry at the good person card." Hearing this, Gu Chuzheng was furious. The aura around her dropped, and with a face like a Rakshasa, she looked at Xia Cheng and said, "Xia Cheng, where's the nearest place to us with a lot of supplies?" Hearing the question, he looked down and answered, "It's Qing'an Base. Even at the fastest speed, it will take 2 days." Hearing the answer, her face became even darker. Supporting her forehead with one hand, she said irritably, "Then go to a smaller place nearby where we can buy supplies. We have to be fast." Receiving the order, a Bao also looked back and said, "All right then, everybody sit tight." After 2 hours of driving, they stopped in front of a sign that read Xiao Ming's Grocery. At this time, Gu Chuzheng walked in, tapped her hand on the glass cabinet, and said, "Boss, I want to buy things." A shirtless man wiping a gun, a mercenary who was also the boss named Brother Yong, replied, "You need crystal cores to buy things here, girl. How many crystal cores do you have?" At this time, a bright blonde man walked out, looked at her, and said, "This girl looks different." Hearing the person beside him say that, Brother Yong couldn't help but strictly question, is survival more important now, or women? At this time, Gu Chuzheng pulled out a bag and threw it onto the cabinet. The crystal cores inside spilled out. Then she looked at the 2 men in front of her and asked, "Is this pile enough?" The man who had teased her earlier now turned pale and panicked, saying, "There's only 1 crystal core in the brain of 1 zombie. How many zombies do you have to kill for this?" Seeing the other party rambling, she frowned and said, "Are you trading or not? Hurry up." Brother Yong at this time also picked up a crystal core, sweating slightly, and asked, "What do you want to trade?" Hearing the question, Gu Chuzheng pointed to the gun on the cabinet that had just been wiped and said, "This gun of yours is not bad. I really like it. Sell it to me." Hearing the item the person in front of him wanted, Brother Yong was a bit startled. He picked up the gun and said, "Huh? Is this gun of mine worth that many crystal cores?" Seeing the other party continuously talking nonsense, she frowned and said, "Cut the crap. Are you trading or not?" Seeing that the person in front of him seemed impatient, he immediately softened, handed the gun to her, and replied, trade. I'll give you some extra bullets. It's rare to see a girl as generous as you. After receiving the gun, Gu Chu Zheng slung it over her back and turned around to leave. Outside, Yishao followed behind her and asked worriedly, exposing so many crystal cores. Will they attack us? Gu Chu Zheng replied nonchalantly as she walked, they won't. Xia Cheng, right behind them, couldn't help but wonder and asked why. Hearing the question, she slowly explained, before seeing the opponent's strength clearly, a cautious team will not make a move. At this time, a Bao leaned out from the car and announced, Get in the car, quickly. There's zombies coming here. At the same time, the zombies were also staggering towards them. Hearing this, all the people outside quickly got into the car. Xia Cheng shouted in fear, damn, run fast. At this moment, Gu Chu Zheng also ran to the passenger seat and urged the other two, Get in the car, hurry. After everyone safely got into the car, the off-road vehicle quickly started and drove away. Inside the car, she skillfully assembled the gun before a Bao's bewildered eyes. Then she leaned out of the window and continuously fired at the zombies behind. Shell casings now fell all over the road. The zombies chasing after Gu Chu Zheng's car were pierced by bullets. After firing for a while, she pointed the smoking muzzle up as if blowing on it and said casually, moving targets. After that, the car sped down the road again. From inside came a voice asking, Is everyone okay? Receiving the question, Yi Zhao's face was pale, sweating cold sweat, and he replied, I'm okay. But right after answering, the guy panicked, his hand trembling as he pointed to the car window and stuttered, Zed zombie. Yi Zhao's action made the person sitting next to him look over, while Lu Ran's face darkened. At this time, outside the window, there was a zombie with bloodshot eyes, growling and howling. Seeing this, a Bao immediately panicked. Suddenly, there was another car driving behind them. In a critical situation, a Bao slammed on the brakes, turned the steering wheel sharply, making a beautiful swerve, and sent the zombie flying away. After taking care of the tailing zombie, Yishao leaned out of the window, looked at the car behind them, and said, That shopkeeper is also driving after us. He wouldn't be harboring any wild ambitions, would he? Hearing the guy's query, Gu Chu Zheng replied nonchalantly while reloading the gun, No, they are probably running away from the zombies. Hearing this, the people in the car also looked back at the zombies moving at an unusual speed and said in panic, Have those zombies become spirits? They are much faster than before. Another person quickly followed up, That's right, it's really weird. Hearing the doubts of the people in the car, Gu Chu Zheng simply said calmly, The zombies are evolving. What's so strange? Hearing her say that, Yishao and Xia Cheng in the back cried out in shock. What? After moving for a while, the off-road vehicle stopped by a riverbank. Sitting on a rock, roasting fish, she explained, from the moment crystal cores appeared in their brains, those zombies began to evolve. Hearing her say that, Yishao asked, So, will zombies be like us humans in the future? Hearing the question, she replied faintly, Not to that extent. At most, they will have the IQ of a 7-year-old child. Hearing her say that, a Bao, who was twisting open a water bottle to the side, also spoke up to reassure, Then they certainly won't be able to outsmart people with normal IQs like us. Hearing this, Gu Chu Zheng hesitated and said, However, regarding the zombie king, I'm not sure. Hearing her say that, a Bao, who was drinking water, choked violently. Then he stuttered, Zombie king? What is that? Hearing the question, she just slowly lifted the fish skewer and replied, The boss of the zombies. At this moment, Xia Cheng came out of the tent and called, Gu Chu Zheng, Sister Zheng, come here. Something is wrong with Lu Ran. Hearing this, she called out into the tent, What's wrong with him? Then she quickly walked into the tent. Inside, it was full of people, including Brother Yong, the man who sold her the weapon. Lu Ran was lying on the bed, his face flushed red, hands tightly gripping the pillow, his whole body trembling incessantly. Seeing this, Yishao stood to one side and immediately asked, Brother Yong, can you tell what condition he's in now? After observing for a while, Brother Yong asked in return, Was he bitten? Xia Cheng, standing beside them, also looked over and said, That's right, but he hasn't turned into a zombie. He's just been running a fever this whole time. Could he be awakening a supernatural ability? At this moment, Gu Chu Zheng also stepped closer to Lu Ran and touched his forehead. At the same time, Brother Yong looked toward Gu Chu Zheng and said, In this condition, his temperature has to be brought down immediately. Otherwise, before he can even awaken his supernatural ability, the fever fever will have burned out his brain. Then Brother Young slowly explained to her, this is also why, after being bitten, only a very small number of people can awaken supernatural abilities. Countless people simply can't withstand such a high temperature. Their abilities don't awaken, and their brains get ruined by the fever. In the end, they can only turn into zombies. After listening, she pondered and said, but in weather like this, how are we supposed to lower his temperature? Even if there's water, it's hot water. At this, Brother Young also offered a suggestion. Then we'll have to find someone with an ice-type supernatural ability. Then he paused slightly and continued, that's a mutated ability. My team doesn't have anyone like that, but I can send you a water-type ability user first. Hearing what the man in front of her said, Gu Chu Zheng took out a bag of crystal cores and said, take these crystal cores and hurry up and find someone with an ice-type ability. Seeing how generous she was, Brother Young could only fall silent, sweating inwardly. After a while, Brother Young lowered his head and stammered, but giving me crystal cores won't do any good either. Then he immediately turned and left, saying, no, wait. Over there is one of the 5 big teams. They might have one. I'll go ask. Meanwhile, Ningyu was sitting leisurely in a chair, holding the original owner's jade pendant in her hand as she watched. Suddenly, someone came in and looked at her. It was the Deputy Captain Hua. He said, Miss Ning, a squad is asking whether we have anyone with an ice-type ability. Hearing this, she thought briefly and said, but we don't have any ice-type ability users. We only have water-type ones. He looked at Ningyu attentively and replied, that's right, I already answered them, but if they're looking for an ice-type ability user at a time like this, then someone must have been bitten and needs to awaken an ability. Suddenly, she raised her eyes to look at the man in front of her and asked, do you know what their captain is called? Hearing the question, Deputy Captain Ho froze for a moment, then replied, oh, she's a girl. I think her name is Chu Zheng. When she heard that name, she could no longer stay calm and cried out in panic, who did you say? Then she quickly sat up. Seeing her like this, he frowned slightly and repeated, a girl named Chu Zheng. Hearing this, memories of the past immediately surfaced in Ningyu's mind. Unexpected, isn't it? Back then, the reason I treated you so well was all because of it. At that time, she was holding the original owner while her hand slipped around the cord on the other woman's neck. After obtaining what she wanted, she pushed the original owner away and continued, the jade pendant on you. Her actions made the woman she pushed away widen her eyes in confusion, not understanding what was going on. Then the image of the original owner falling from the roof of the vehicle into the horde of zombies below appeared. In Ningyu's mind, she thought, back then I thought she would definitely die and become a zombie, so I didn't hide anything. Then she supported her chin, her expression changing as she thought, but I never expected she'd still be alive, and even awakening a supernatural ability. Seeing that the person in front of him looked somewhat off, Deputy Captain Ho hurriedly stepped closer and said, what's wrong? You don't look too good. Hearing this, Ningyu answered evasively, I'm fine. I'm probably just a little tired. After that, she placed one hand on the hand of the man before her and asked, Brother Hua, how much longer until we reach Qing'an base? Hearing the question, he pulled the woman in front of him into his arms and replied, Yu, even at our fastest, it'll take 6 days. Hearing the answer, she smiled wickedly in his embrace. Then she secretly challenged in her heart, Gu Chu Zheng, just you wait for me. At the same time, on Gu Chu Zheng's side, Lu Ran also woke up in a daze. Sensing the person resting his head on her lap move, she asked, you're awake? Seeing the awkward position he was in, his face instantly flushed red. Then he quickly sat up. After calming down, Lu Ran looked toward her shyly and thought, why was I lying on her legs? But at this moment, she reached out to touch the forehead of the person beside her and check his temperature. Seeing that something still seemed wrong, she withdrew her hand, looked at him, and said, your fever had gone down just now. Why are you even hotter now? While he was still feeling embarrassed, someone came in from outside. When Yishao saw that Lu Ran was awake, he immediately said, Lu Ran, you're finally awake. Xia Cheng beside him also sighed. You were unconscious for 3 whole days. Brother Yong also spoke up and asked, what ability did you awaken? At this moment, Lu Ran stood beside Gu Chu Zheng and looked at the 3 people in front of him. A Bao, standing opposite him, also asked, do you feel an unusual power inside your body? Then he used his own ability, lighting a flame, and continued, focus your energy and then you should be able to use your ability. Like this. Hearing a Bao say that, Lu Ran also focused, but nothing appeared in his hand. Then he looked at the people in front of him and said dejectedly, "It seems like there isn't anything." Hearing what he said, Yishao pushed up his glasses slightly and said seriously, "So he awakened emptiness?" Xia Cheng, standing to the side, also rubbed his chin and pondered. It might be some uncommon ability that hasn't been discovered yet. Hearing their analysis, Lu Ran lowered his head and said, "Maybe." But seeing him like this, Yishao immediately said, "Look on the bright side. Although it's a little disappointing, at least you didn't turn into a zombie. We won't have to worry every day that you'll suddenly bite me." Xia Cheng, standing beside him, also agreed. Makes sense. After that, Lu Ran looked toward Gu Chu Zheng, who had been sitting silently the whole time, and said, "Gu Chu Zheng, when you saved me, was it because you thought I would awaken a supernatural ability?" At this, she merely lowered her head. Seeing that the person in front of him said nothing, he bent down and continued, "Unfortunately, I didn't awaken any ability. I've disappointed you." Seeing Lu Ran like this, she quickly explained, "That's not it. I told you. I simply wanted you to feel that I'm a good person." Seeing Gu Chu Zheng talking with him, a Bao immediately dragged his two teammates outside. "Gu Chu Zheng, we still have things to do, so we'll go first." At this moment, Yizhao's voice drifted in from outside. "Sister Chu Zheng has taken a liking to Lu Ran, right?" Hearing this, delighted laughter immediately rang out outside. "Ha ha!" Then a Bao also continued, "If you like Lu Ran, just say it directly. Why insist on being a good person?" Xia Cheng did not stay quiet either and joined his two brothers. "Exactly. She's even embarrassed." Both people inside, Lu Ran and Gu Chu Zheng, heard everything the people outside said clearly. At this moment, she was still sitting silently, but her body trembled slightly while he remained standing there. In her mind, a warning kept echoing. She had to maintain her noble and cold image. After calming down, she looked at the person in front of her and said, "Don't listen to their nonsense. It's not what they think." But at this moment, he turned away with a red face and said, "Although I'm very grateful to you, I still hope I can set out on my own. After what happened with the group I was with before, I don't want to face that a second time." Hearing him say this, Gu Chu Zheng looked at him in a daze and asked, "You want to leave?" Then her face darkened, and she immediately objected. No, hearing her say this, Lu Ran looked back and said, "We aren't going the same way. I'll remember the favor I owe you." But none of his words entered the ears of the person behind him. She stood up and walked toward him, her voice sinking slightly as she said, "You have to come with me." Hearing her words, he could not help frowning and questioning her. "Gu Chu Zheng, are you planning to imprison me?" Seeing this, Gu Chu Zheng leaned against the chair and said, "I saved you, so you have to listen to me." But in her heart, she was already so angry that her fists clenched tight. "If the good person card runs away, where am I supposed to go to be a good person?" Hearing her say this, Lu Ran slowly analyzed. "Besides, we aren't exactly that close, are we? Or did you know me before?" Hearing his airtight reasoning, Gu Chu Zheng, lacking justification, could only point at him and say, "I'm protecting you." As she spoke, she stepped closer to him. "In my place." She looked directly into Lu Ran's eyes and continued, "I can guarantee that you won't be attacked by zombies, nor will you be harmed by other people." Then Gu Chu Zheng calmly turned in another direction and continued, "Besides, if you stay here, there's food and drink. What else are you dissatisfied with?" Hearing her words, he stammered in retort, "You're imprisoning me." Just as the two were arguing fiercely, a sudden ding rang out. The system immediately appeared with a main mission. Please spend 1,000 crystal cores within 1 hour. Then it kindly reminded Gu Chu Zheng, "Big sister, if you keep acting like this, the good person card is going to turn dark." Hearing this, she gritted her teeth slightly and said nothing. Seeing her like this, the system stepped closer and poked her cheek with one hand, saying, "Don't be like this anymore. First, we need to smile." After taking a while to calm down, she looked at Lu Ran in front of her and said something unrelated. "Are you hungry? I'll take you." Hearing her say this, he sat down on the chair angrily, his hands clenched tight, and said furiously, "No need. Let me go." But she ignored him and simply took out a clean set of clothes, handed it to him, and said, "You sweated a lot just now. Take a bath first." Hearing every word Gu Chuzheng said, he covered his face in panic and shouted, In the apocalypse, there isn't even enough water to drink, and you still want me to bathe? Are you joking? In the bathroom, Lu Ran stood looking at his reflection in the bucket of water, his face covered in water, and could not help falling into thought. What exactly is her goal? Then, as he cleaned his body with soap, he thought, she's treating me so well. She isn't planning to keep me like some kept man, is she? At this point, not a single drop was coming from the faucet anymore, and he pondered slightly. There really isn't even one drop left to squeeze out. Outside, the water-type ability user, who had been drained dry to fill the buckets of water in front of him, was exhausted when a bag of crystal cores was handed to him. Hurry up and absorb the crystal cores Gu Chuzheng gave you. From now on, you'll need to provide bathwater for Gu Chuzheng every day. At this moment, Brother Yong leaned against the wall with his arms crossed, looking at the young man in front of him as he continued. With this pile of crystal cores, you'll level up very quickly. After looking at the pile of crystal cores in front of him, the water-type ability user was as delighted as a child being given candy and said happily, "Thank you, Brother Yong." Suddenly, a voice rang out, as if it wanted to knock down the young man who had just been happily hugging the bag of crystal cores. "Brother Yong, this is bad. The water we need for cooking is all gone." At the same time, at the campsite, Brother Yong looked at the two girls in front of him, who were carrying a bucket of water, and angrily shouted, "You took our water without asking. Who gave you the right?" Hearing this, one of the girls pointed at Lu Ran, who had just finished bathing and was carrying 2 buckets, and questioned, "It was him. He bathed first, and one person used 2 whole big buckets. We didn't use much at all, so why are you putting all the blame on us?" On this side, Lu Ran, who had somehow been dragged into someone else's argument, felt a little uncomfortable and quickly left. Suddenly, someone's huge black pot came flying over and landed directly on Lu Ran's freshly washed body, knocking him down to the ground with a thud. On this side, hearing what the person in front of him said, Brother Yong could no longer suppress his anger and shouted, "Can you people be the same as him?" Hearing the other party say this, the girl puffed up her cheeks in grievance and glanced at Lu Ran, whose body was now covered in mud. She muttered quietly, "Then what gives him the right?" At this moment, another young man also came over to smooth things over. "Brother Yong, enough. Isn't it just a little water? Once the ability user recovers, there'll be water again. They're all girls. It's understandable that they want to bathe." He was Brother Yong's partner from the grocery store. Before the person mentioned could reply, he put on a pleading look and said, that person got to bathe too. "Brother Yong, can't you be a little less biased?" Hearing someone speak up for her, the girl turned and questioned Brother Yong. "Exactly. If a boy can bathe, then why can't we?" Hearing this, Brother Yong could no longer hold back and immediately mocked. He exchanged crystal cores for it. "Can you compare to that?" Then he looked toward the partner who had just offended the girl and questioned him. "And you, all you know how to do is speak up for your sister. Are you going to take out crystal cores to exchange for it?" 2 buckets of water cost 1,000 crystal cores. Do you have that? If you want her to bathe, take out the crystal cores. Hearing the crystal core price for 2 buckets of water, the man pretended to be confused, scratched his head, and replied, "Brother Yong, I didn't mean." The people around them also crowded over to watch, making him even angrier. He turned toward them and furiously kicked the empty bucket nearby, muttering nonstop, "Bathe, bathe, bathe. Bathe my ass. Do all of you have crystal cores?" Meanwhile, after Lu Ran heard what the people on this side said, he could not help falling silent. He lowered his head, picked up the 2 buckets, and said softly, "She spent 1,000 crystal cores just so I could bathe?" At this moment, Gu Chuzheng's off-road vehicle was also speeding along the road toward Qing'an Base. 7 days later, at Qing'an Base, everyone finally reached their destination. At this moment, a group of people dressed in fully protective security gear held laser guns, aiming them straight at Gu Chuzheng's group as they warned, "The base's opening hours have already passed for today. Leave immediately." At this moment, everyone got out of the vehicle as the laser beams aimed directly at their vital points. Hearing this, a Bao also said, "Gu Chuzheng, we'll have to find a place to stay first. We can only enter tomorrow." Hearing this, she turned, took the hand of the person beside her, and pulled Lu Ran along as she said, As they were leaving, seeing her take the initiative to hold his hand made Lu Ran blush bright red, and he fell silent. At the same time, she looked toward the 3 people in his team and said, "Our deal is complete. You can do as you please." Hearing her say that, Lu Ran looked over in confusion and asked, I thought you were traveling together? Seeing that Lu Ran seemed to have misunderstood, and Bao quickly explained, no. To be precise, Miss Gu Chuzheng hired us. Yishao instantly got into character, throwing an arm around the person beside him and saying, Miss Gu Chuzheng, are you trying to abandon us? Xia Cheng, standing to the side, also smiled and played along. All of a sudden, I'm a little reluctant to part, seeing the two of them act like this. And Bao quickly went over, put his arms around both of them, and dragged them away while saying, What are you doing? You have no sense at all. Miss Gu Chuzheng still has important business to handle. Let's not get in her way. Hearing their big brother say that, the two of them answered in unison, Oh, got it. Behind them, Lu Ran had heard everything the three of them said. His face darkened, and he remained silent. Just then, the system suddenly appeared with a mission. Main mission, spend 200 crystal cores within 1 hour. When Gu Chuzheng heard the mission, she could not hold back and cursed, Damn it. Then she kicked away the barrier in front of her. The sound of the impact rang out loudly. Standing beside her, Lu Ran looked at Gu Chuzheng in surprise and asked with concern, What's wrong? The three people ahead were so frightened that they thought she was angry because of what they had said. So they hurriedly urged one another, Run, run. Miss Gu Chuzheng is flying into a rage out of embarrassment. The next day, at the dormitory of Qingyan Base, a pair of simple black shoes stepped into view. At the front desk, a female staff member kept her head buried in her phone, paying no attention to her surroundings. Hearing someone come in, she did not lift her head from her phone and said arrogantly, What requirements do you people have for accommodation? Hearing the person in front of her, Gu Chuzheng walked closer and asked, Do you have a villa? When a staff member heard the question, she looked up at the person opposite her, put her phone face down, and said in confusion, Do you think you're on vacation? It's the apocalypse, and you still want to live in a villa? Why don't you say you want to go to the moon while you're at it? Seeing the other party beat around the bush, Gu Chuzheng said bluntly, Oh, can you arrange that? Hearing that, the woman scowled and replied while playing her game, There are no villas. Hurry up, don't waste time. Seeing that the other party had no goodwill, Gu Chuzheng took out a handful of crystal cores and placed them on the table. The clattering sound of the crystal cores hitting the table immediately drew the attention of the person in front of her. Seeing this, the woman stood up in shock, covered her mouth, and stammered, Why are there so many sea crystal cores? At this moment, Gu Chuzheng asked again, Do you have one now? The female staff member immediately put on a warm smile and said, Of course. As it happens, there's one last villa left. Lu Ran, who had been standing beside her and watching from beginning to end, thought in a daze, Where on earth did she get those crystal cores? I never saw her kill any zombies along the way. Hearing that, Gu Chuzheng turned to leave and said, Good, I'll take that one. Just then, a man walked in and said, Zhou Jing, are you on duty? Before the person in front of him could say anything, he asked, I remember we still have one villa left, right? Seeing who had arrived, Zhou Jing gestured toward Gu Chuzheng and said, Huh? It's gone. This young lady just reserved it. Hearing that, the man shamelessly said, Arrange another place for them to stay. Give me the key to that villa first. Seeing this, Zhou Jing stammered, but she already paid 200 crystal cores as rent. That's equivalent to a whole year. Seeing that Zhou Jing seemed difficult to persuade, the man looked toward Gu Chuzheng and Lu Ran beside her, sizing them up in secret. These two look so young. How do they have so many crystal cores? After thinking for a moment, he walked closer to Gu Chuzheng to negotiate. I'll arrange another house for the two of you. The scenery will be good, and no one will disturb you. Seeing that the newcomer wanted to snatch what belonged to her, Gu Chuzheng could not help frowning and said, Who are you? Hearing that, Zhou Jing quickly answered from inside. He is the captain of our base's housing management team. Captain Hua. Hearing the person beside her say that, Gu Chuzheng looked over with a scowl and questioned, Do you want to go back on the deal? Seeing that she seemed unwilling to negotiate, Captain Hua said arrogantly, Young lady, when it comes to all housing here, only my word counts. If you accept my proposal, I'll arrange a place for you. If you don't accept it, then you can only leave. Just as the atmosphere grew tense, a woman walked in from outside and asked, Captain Hua, are you done? Then Ningyu looked toward Gu Chuzheng and thought to herself, This person looks so familiar. But a few seconds later, her face turned pale. Gu Chuzheng, it really is her. Why did I run into her here? At this moment, Captain Huo leaned close to her and said, Miss Ning, it's almost done. Please wait a moment. But Gu Chuzheng, standing to the side, immediately rejected his proposal. I disagree. After that, he looked toward Ningyu and said, the last villa has already been reserved by someone else. But at that moment, all Ningyu could think about was, it seems she doesn't recognize me. Is she pretending? But does she really not recognize me? After confirming that it was true, Ningyu said confidently, if that's the case, why not let whoever pays more get it? As soon as she made that suggestion, a chime rang out and a mission appeared. Main mission, obtain the villa at the highest price. The system appeared at that moment, sitting on a pile of money while holding a sign that read, bid. Seeing this, Gu Chuzheng closed her eyes in frustration and said, how troublesome. I just want to find a place to stay. But the system was born to compete. Wearing fine jewelry on one hand and holding a briefcase full of money in the other, it pointed and said, Miss, charge forward. We have the most money. At this moment, Zhou Jing sighed in admiration at Ningyu, then looked toward Gu Chuzheng and said, Miss Ning is truly generous. What do you think? Gu Chuzheng calmly pointed at the pile of crystal cores and said, here, 200 crystal cores for 1 month. After hearing Gu Chuzheng, Ningyu looked over in a daze and said, you actually dare to use 200 crystal cores to rent a place for 1 month? But Gu Chuzheng did not care. She only looked at the person beside her and said, your turn. Seeing her challenge, Ningyu quickly made a bid. I bid 300. Hearing the other party's bid, Gu Chuzheng only said calmly, 600. Hearing Gu Chuzheng's price, Ningyu looked at the person beside her in surprise and thought suspiciously, how is that possible? Is she just saying it casually? But after calming down, Ningyu looked at the person in front of her with contempt and said, you doubled the price the moment you opened your mouth. I'm afraid you don't have that many crystal cores. Seeing that Ningyu doubted her, Gu Chuzheng's face darkened and she immediately pulled out a bag filled with crystal cores. She placed it on the table, then looked at the people on the other side and said, there are 600 here. Count them. If even one is missing, I'll double the amount. Looking at the pile of crystal cores on the table, Ningyu could not help feeling shocked. What exactly has she gone through? How does she have even more crystal cores than I do? After standing to the side and observing, Captain Hora looked at Gu Chuzheng and asked in confusion, do you have a space ability? Hearing the question, Gu Chuzheng only said coldly, what does that have to do with you? Then she lowered her eyes slightly and continued, do you have a higher bid? If not, we're going to rest. Hearing herself be mentioned, Ningyu gave an angry snort and turned to leave. Seeing her opponent retreat after realizing the difficulty, Gu Chuzheng said without restraint, poor. Then Gu Chuzheng looked toward Zhou Jing and said, can you take me there now? Seeing her imposing manner, Zhou Jing stammered in fright. Igriegajis. After getting the answer she wanted, Gu Chuzheng took the hand of the person who had been standing silently behind her the whole time and left. At this moment, Lu Ran could not hold back the curiosity in his heart and asked, hey, where did you get so many crystal cores? Hearing the question, Gu Chuzheng looked back and replied calmly, I bought them wholesale. After hearing her answer, Lu Ran broke out in a cold sweat and fell speechless. Behind them, Captain Huo watched everyone leave and thought, that girl has a space ability and such a large number of crystal cores. I wonder what her background is. By now, the sky had already darkened. The full moon in the apocalyptic sky no longer shone as brightly. Lu Ran was standing on the rooftop, enjoying the wind. The foul wind swept through his hair, making his looks seem to rise another level in an instant. Hearing a noise, he looked over and asked, what is it? But the maid behind him was absorbed in Lu Ran's appearance and thought, he's so handsome. No wonder that girl used so many crystal cores to rent a villa. So it was to keep him. After calming down, she held a tray of food with a flushed face and stammered, Mr. Lu, Miss Gu Chuzheng told me to bring food for you. After glancing at the tray of food, Lu Ran only replied slowly, all right, put it there. Hearing this, the maid placed the tray of food on the table, but she did not leave. She only stood there. Seeing that the person still had not left, Lu Ran asked in confusion, is there something else? The maid gave a professional smile and said, Miss Gu Chuzheng want me to watch you finish eating, then prepare bathwater for you. Hearing this, Lu Ran's expression suddenly sank. He gritted his teeth angrily and slammed a hand onto the protective railing, thinking, it's one thing to lock me up, but does she also want me to wash myself clean and serve her? After a while, he silently comforted himself. Calm down. I have to calm down. Then he looked toward the other person and said, "Please tell her that I'm not feeling very well. I want to rest for a bit." Hearing that, the maid nervously broke out in sweat and looked at the person in front of her as she replied, "But Miss Gu Chuzheng instructed me that I must." Hearing this, the anger in Lu Ran's heart could no longer be restrained. He looked at the maid and shouted, "Where is she?" Seeing him like this, the maid trembled and stammered, "In the B bedroom downstairs." After getting the answer, Lu Ran loosened his tie with one hand and gritted his teeth as he said, "Gu Chuzheng." A moment later, a foot kicked the door open. As soon as Lu Ran entered the room, he shouted, "Gu Chuzheng, what exactly do you want to do?" But there was not a single person inside, causing the man who had been burning with anger to suddenly fall silent. After searching for a while, Lu Ran finally found Gu Chuzheng. At this moment, she had just finished bathing and was straightening her clothes. Suddenly, he opened the door from behind and walked in with a gloomy expression. "You've already finished bathing and getting ready? Now you're just waiting for me to deliver myself to your door, right?" Seeing how rude the other party was, Gu Chuzheng's face also darkened. As soon as she looked over, Lu Ran continued, "Do you want to sleep with me that badly?" But before the person in front of him could answer, he blushed and looked at her as he asked, "If I let you sleep with me, will you let me go?" Hearing the question, Gu Chuzheng looked at the person beside her in shock, holding her clothes tightly with one hand as she wondered, "I don't want to sleep with you." Then, in her mind, one hand pointed straight at her own face while the other rested on her waist. Seriously? How could he have that kind of thought? Am I that kind of person? But at this moment, Lu Ran stepped closer to her and pressed Gu Chuzheng against the dressing table. His shirt buttons were all undone, revealing the body beneath. He said, "You pretend otherwise, but this is what you want. I'll satisfy you." After saying that, before the person in front of him could react, he gave her a kiss. His action made Gu Chuzheng stare wide-eyed. But suddenly, a strange feeling swept through her body. Then a whoosh sounded. Gu Chuzheng thought in a daze, what just happened? Both his body and hers were floating in midair. Suddenly, there was the sound of a door slamming shut. Then Gu Chuzheng found herself sitting on the bed at some point. She looked toward the bathroom, where she had just been standing, and thought blankly, "Wasn't I over there just now? What kind of ability is this? Teleportation?" After calming down, she looked toward the door and said, "That weakling actually let himself get away, and he lied to me, saying he didn't have any ability." She frowned, touched her lips with one hand, and continued, "Also, was I just taken advantage of?" While she was still angry, the system appeared again, leisurely holding a fan as it said, "Main mission, please spend 200 crystal cores within 2 hours." Hearing this, Gu Chuzheng's brows furrowed even more as she cursed, "You damn bastard, can't you give me a little time to breathe?" Hearing her curse, the system was not angry. It even looked a little happy as it waved its fan, which had the words "Go bankrupt" written on it, and said, "Miss, we are the spendthrift system. We must work hard and keep going non-stop to go bankrupt. Only then will it conform to our outlook on life and values." Hearing that, Gu Chuzheng did not hold back at all. She pointed at the system and continued cursing, "Bastard, you damn dog." A while later, at the Apocalypse restaurant, Gu Chuzheng sat there. In front of her, a waiter held a menu and said, "Would you like anything to eat? This is the menu." Hearing that she had to choose dishes, Gu Chuzheng said coldly, "Troublesome. I don't want to look. How many crystal cores is the most expensive dish?" Hearing the question from the guest in front of him, the young waiter replied, "The most expensive dish here costs 100 crystal cores." After hearing that, Gu Chuzheng seemed somewhat satisfied and said, "That will do. Bring 2 portions." The male waiter quickly replied, "Please wait a moment." Suddenly, hurried footsteps sounded outside. There were both men and women. That group was Ningyu's people. They hurried inside. Seeing them, Gu Chuzheng wondered, aren't these the people who went looking for the original owner? On the other side, Ningyu accidentally bumped into a female employee, causing the cup of coffee in the employee's hand to fall along with the employee herself. The employee cried out in panic, "Ah!" Seeing this, Ningyu quickly turned back to help the female employee up and said, "I'm sorry, I have something urgent to deal with. Are you all right?" The female employee quickly replied as well, "I'm fine." Upon receiving the answer, she and the group of people behind her hurriedly left. Suddenly, at this moment, the female employee saw the jade pendant that Ningyu had stolen dropped on the ground. So she quickly picked it up and called out after her, "I'll miss you drop this." As soon as she finished speaking, a hand took the jade pendant. It was the manager of Ching and Base. After taking the item, he just indifferently said thank you. On this side, the spendthrift system also appeaed, sitting on her shoulder. He pointed in the direction Ningyu went and said, "Big sister, hurry up and go forward. Don't let Ningyu achieve her goal." But Gu Chuzheng just leisurely crossed her arms, closed her eyes, and said, "Not going. If I go over now and tell those people that I am the real owner of the jade pendant, at most it will only make them feel that they found the wrong person." Then, as if transforming into a villainess, she proudly continued, "Then what would be interesting about that? If we're going to play, we have to play big." Hearing this, the spendthrift system couldn't help but tremble in fear, covering his eyes and saying, "Big sister is so scary." At this time, at the Qingyan subway, two men were continuously chasing a female student. She was running and sobbing. From behind, a perverted voice echoed, "You can't escape." While running, she tripped over the barrier and fell forward, screaming in terror. After recovering from the shock, the female student looked back. By this time, the shadows of those two men had already fallen upon her body. One guy with a dark expression continuously laughed proudly, and then reached his hand toward the female student. The terrified girl stammered, "No, don't come near." Seeing the person in front of him resist, he immediately used his hand to cover her mouth. The female student was terrified, tears welling up at her eyes, making soundless cries, "MH, MH." Seeing the other party continuously resist, he pinned both of her hands to the ground, looking straight into her desperate eyes, and spouted cheap words, "Ayo, little sister, don't scream, don't scream. Later on, Big Brother will let you scream to your heart's content." The other guy stood aside, watching intently. He just opened his mouth, about to make his next move, ignoring the female student struggling with all her might like a fish out of water. But before the pervert could touch his prey, a flying rock lovingly collided with his cheek, knocking out a tooth. Seeing this, the other guy aggressively asked, "Who is it?" Standing on the stairs was Gu Chuzheng. She looked at the two guys below and disdainfully replied, "You're blocking the way." After observing her from top to bottom, the guy who just had his tooth knocked out by the rock continued to boast, "Oh, my luck is really good today," another girl delivering herself to the door. The female student saw someone and desperately cried for help, but before she could finish speaking, the other guy quickly covered her mouth and looked at Gu Chuzheng with a sinister smile. She slowly walked down at this time, and the pervert, seeing her come down, excitedly teased, "Did no one tell you girls that you shouldn't come to places like this alone? It's very dangerous." Then he approached her, showing a vulgar expression, and said, "Let me tell you." After saying that, the opponent reached out his hand, intending to touch her, but she quickly grabbed it. Then, with a strong force, she twisted the person's arm. The pain from the twisted arm made his eyes bulge as he screamed, "Are you done?" Not letting him speak, she continued, "Let me tell you, Seeing Gu Chuzheng despise him, the pervert's face darkened with anger. He tightly clenched his other hand and threw a punch in her direction, cursing, "Damn it, go to hell." But his punch was easily dodged by the person in front of him. At this time, before the opponent could pull his hand back, thin threads like spider webs appeared under her hand. Then, Gu Chuzheng looked at the person in front of her and judged, "You're too overconfident." After speaking, those threads swung towards the pervert. Her actions were so fast that the opponent didn't even have time to react. After finishing the job, the threads on her hand disappeared as if they had never appeared. Then she slowly said, "I had no choice but to take action." Behind her, the pervert lay motionless on the ground, covered in patches of syrup. His underling panicked and couldn't form a sentence. A BB boss. The female student standing nearby also couldn't help but be frightened, covering her mouth. Hearing the noisy person nearby, Gu Chuzheng looked over with a Rakshasa-like expression and warned, "Shut up, so noisy." Hearing her say that, the remaining guy quickly covered his own mouth and used all his strength to run away. At the same time, the spendthrift system also appeared. He confusedly scratched his head, looked at her, and asked, "Big sister, you?" But Gu Chuzheng interrupted his words. They attacked first. Seeing that she seemed to misunderstand him, the spendthrift system asked, "I wasn't talking about that. I wanted to ask what move you just used." Hearing the question, she slightly frowned and replied, "What does it have to do with you?" Receiving such a ruthless answer from her made him angry. He pointed at her and said, "You are my host. Of course it has something to do with me." But then he picked his nose and muttered to himself, "Why does Big Sister have such terrifying strength? Did I miss something?" On this side, Gu Chuzheng was just about to leave when the female student's voice called out from behind. Wait, the girl stammered, "Can you take me home? I will pay you for your trouble." Seeing Gu Chuzheng disagreeing, the female student quickly introduced herself. My name is Fanyu. I am the daughter of the minister of this base. Because I argued with my dad, I ran away from home, but I didn't expect to get lost and followed. At this time, the spendthrift system appeared beside a warning board. Children should note that under no circumstances should they run away from home on their own, because danger will not stop due to your impulsiveness, and criminals will not sympathize with you just because you are weak and pitiful. At this time, Fanyu also looked at her and timidly asked, "Thank you for saving me, sister. What is your name? What should I do to repay you?" Suddenly, a voice rang out from behind. It's them. The guy who ran away earlier led a group of people, pointed at the two of them, and leaned toward the person next to him, saying, "Boss, it's these two brats who killed Wang Yer." Fanyu was terrified and reached out to grab Gu Chuzheng's hand, crying out, "Sister!" Suddenly, her voice echoed, "I somewhat regret it. Dealing with just one person was my mistake." The boss who had just arrived heard this and triumphantly clenched his fists, saying, "It's good that you know you're wrong, but you killed my brother. As the boss, if I don't avenge my brother, it would be too unrighteous." But contrary to his thoughts, she just frowned slightly, looked at the crowd in front of her, and said, "I should have dealt with both of them." Hearing Gu Chuzheng say that, the boss paused a bit and stammered a question. "Do you have any shame?" The underlings behind him also panicked and urged, "Boss, quickly deal with her. She has already awakened her ability." At the same time, the sound of mission notification rang out on her side. New main mission. Spend 100 crystal cores within 1 hour. Upon receiving the mission, she stayed silent, closed her eyes, and pondered for a moment. Then she opened her eyes and excitedly said, "I have a way." She took out a handful of crystal cores and said, "Just capture one of them, and you can come here to claim 10 crystal cores." After saying that, she tossed the crystal cores up and down, attracting the desire of the people on the other side. After hearing and seeing the crystal cores in Gu Chuzheng's hand, the people over there also wavered, continuously saying, crystal cores, it's 10 crystal cores. Are these crystal cores really that easy to earn?" Then another guy stepped forward, looked at the person next to him, and said, "Hee, boss. I'm sorry." The guy who ran to report earlier was also interested in the pile of crystal cores, laughing excitedly. Hee. Then the whole group quickly lunged at each other, continuously punching and kicking. Everything besides their clothes flew into the air. The people inside fought with each other. "He's mine. Caught one. Get lost." After a while, she and Feng Yu went outside. Suddenly, Gu Chuzheng looked at the person behind her and asked, "Does your father have a lot of power?" Seeing the person in front of her ask, she quickly replied, "Yes." Having confirmed the information, she looked at the person beside her and continued, "Then contact your father, tell him to send someone to clean up this mess." Hearing the reason, she agilely replied, "Okay." On this side, a person from the capturing faction asked her, "Little girl, do you want to capture anyone else? We can help you." A green-haired guy hearing this also quickly followed up, "That's right, earning crystal cores like this is much safer than going out and killing zombies." The boss, whose cheek was swollen with a lump and missing a few teeth, angrily scolded, "Despicable." Hearing that, she, not being gentle either, shot back, "Hooligan." Seeing Gu Chuzheng insult him, he aggressively cursed even more, "Shameless, dirty, insidious beast." Seeing the person behind continuously running his mouth, she looked back and said, "What are we doing? Competing to see who has a bigger vocabulary." At this time, the sound of a car horn rang out as a luxury car drove up. A middle-aged man stepped down from the car. As soon as he got off, he looked toward his daughter and called, "Little you, Dad is here." Seeing her father, the girl immediately ran over, tears falling continuously, and threw herself in her father's arms, regretfully saying, "Dad, I'm sorry." Minister Feng quickly hugged his daughter, comforting her, "It's fine as long as you're okay. Don't do this next time." The girl nodded vigorously, "Yes, I know I was wrong." After sobbing for a while, Feng Yu looked back and introduced her savior to her father. "Dad, she is the one who saved me." But halfway through speaking, she became awkward, scratched her cheek, and said, "She is." Seeing the person in front of her confused, she spoke up to bail her out, "Chuzheng." Minister Feng gave a bright smile at this time, looking at her and making an offer, "If Miss Chuzheng doesn't mind, we will take you back." Receiving the offer, Gu Chuzheng did not refuse. It saved her the effort of walking back herself. After everything was settled, the luxury car also left. But at this time, a figure stood hiding at the bus stop, observing the whole story from beginning to end. After seeing everything, Captain Hua thought to himself, this girl actually knows Minister Fong. I absolutely cannot offend her. At this time, in the car, she received another new mission. Main Mission 10, Big Sister, sponsor supplies for the base. Time limit, within 10 days. After hearing this, she directed her gaze forward and said, please take me to the main gate of the base, Minister Fong. Minister Fong smiled upon hearing this and didn't forget to remind her, all right, but there are many zombies outside. Miss Chu Zheng must be very careful when going out. After finishing the conversation with the person in front, she chatted with the spendthrift system, sponsor supplies for the base. In other words, I can't buy them with crystal cores, right? Upon receiving the question, the spendthrift system immediately appeared, crossing his arms and answering, that's right, big sister. I will not provide you with crystal cores over here anymore. You need to go find supplies. Wait until you complete the mission. I will convert an equivalent amount of crystal cores to reward you. By this time, Gu Chuzheng had stepped out of the car. Then she quickly went inside, but at the same time, Ningyu walked out, followed by a group of bodyguards. When she saw the person in front of her, she placed a hand on her hip and smugly thought, humph, now it's your turn to admire me, right? Then she puffed out her chest and walked with her head held high. But the country bumpkin show immediately aired. As she passed by, Gu Chuzheng didn't even spare her a glance, making Ningyu initially surprised and then angrily think, I posed for half the day, and yet I was directly ignored by her. Has she really lost her memory or not? I must find an opportunity to deal with her. Suddenly, the base manager opened the car door and spoke. Miss, let's go. She slowly stepped into the car and looked at the person next to her, saying, I'll go with you all. But the other party quickly advised against it. Miss, the communication lines here are broken. We're going to City A to contact the capital base and will return immediately. It would be safer for you to wait for us inside the base. But she rejected the manager's suggestion, saying, it's fine, I have an ability. Seeing that nothing more could be said, the person next to her quickly answered while closing the door, all right, Mississippi. The next day, with clear skies and white clouds, at the mercenary recruitment center, Brother Bao and his two companions passed by. Seeing many people gathered, Yishao couldn't help but wonder, what are they doing there? A man quickly explained, there's a girl named Chu Zheng recruiting a team to go to City A to find supplies. Anyone who joins will get crystal cores. Hearing that, the young man dazedly said, the rich and generous Chu Zheng. He-chung on the side also chimed in, so generous that no one can rival her. After hearing that, the footsteps of the person in front changed direction. Brother Bao looked at the two people changing sides behind him and said quickly, let's go sign up too. A while later, the off-road vehicle, Dot of Gu Chuzheng, continued cruising smoothly on the road. Inside, a voice was heard. Behind us is Brother Yang's convoy. The number of people on Brother Yang's side has decreased quite a bit. Following the bright red car were two black cars driving parallel to each other. Inside the car, Brother Bao was currently informing her of the previous situation. After entering the base, Brother Yang's people caused a ruckus and then split up. That group of people took Xiner and left. She rested with her eyes closed while listening. Seeing this, Yishao leaned forward and asked then, what about Lu Ran? Receiving the question, she didn't open her eyes, but calmly replied, ran away. Hearing her say that, Brother Bao, who was driving, also panicked, ran away. Seeing the person next to her acting strangely, she immediately asked, what's wrong? But he didn't say anything, only giving a few dry coughs. Suddenly, He-chung, who was sitting in the back observing, pointed forward and informed Brother Bao to turn the car around quickly. There's a mutated zombie ahead. Let's take another road. Just as he finished speaking, the system appeared, waving its hands in a panic, and said, Miss, your good guy card is in danger 500 meters ahead. The people in the car could now see the tall figure of the mutated zombie. It was a 2-meter tall, mutated zombie with ice attribute, and under its feet was Lu Ran. He was stepped on the back by it, and it even emitted ice waves that made him vomit blood. On this side, Gu Chuzheng reached out to grab the steering wheel and directed, quickly, ram it for me. Her words and actions startled Brother Bao, who was driving, making him cry out, ah. Then, she sat in the car, frowning, and cursed continuously. Damn it, do you have a death wish? How dare you hurt him? Then the car rushed towards the zombie, but also quickly dodged the head-on collision. At this time, it seemed angry and growled in a low voice. After the off-road vehicle came to a complete stop, Gu Chuzheng also stepped out of the car. Looking at the zombie in front of her, she couldn't help but sigh. It's quite agile. The zombie's eyes seemed to shoot out fire as it looked at Gu Chuzheng. It then revealed a disdainful smile and used its ice skill. Then, Sharp Eye Shard shot towards her, but she just said one word, stop, and immediately a shield appeared in front of her, blocking all the Sharp Eye Shards. Then, she clasped her hands, and continuous silk threads appeared. It's my turn now. Go to hell. The crystal core has started to evolve. The threads were now sharp, and Gu Chuzheng shot them towards the zombie. The threads rushed fast as the wind, continuously whipping the zombie. She coldly said one word, kill. Immediately, an explosion occurred, and the zombie was reduced to ashes, leaving only a blood-red, mutated crystal core. She also approached to observe it. Then her face darkened as she held the crystal core and said, the crystal cores are also starting to evolve. After finishing, she returned to the car and saw all three people staring at her. Unable to hold back, she asked, what are you looking at me for? At this time, Brother Bao timidly stepped forward and asked, what exactly is your ability? You just swung and waved your hand. That was so amazing. Receiving the question, she didn't hide it and replied, I don't have an ability. Hearing an answer different for what he expected, he frowned slightly and said, if I believe you, I'd be a ghost. Suddenly, the system appeared in a panic, pointing at the motionless Lu Ran and reminded Gu Chuzheng, Miss, aren't you going to stop his bleeding? The good guy card has lost too much blood. If he dies, what should we do? Hearing this, she also looked over, silent for a moment while observing the person lying flat on the ground. She then calmly scratched her head and uttered two words, I forgot. Hearing this, the system seemed to lose its calm. It angrily said, how can you forget this? This is your good guy card. If you don't protect him well, you'll be dragged back. Do you understand? Hearing that, Gu Chuzheng unscrupulously frowned and uttered words of endearment to the system. Drag my ass back. The system was also fuming, pointing its finger at her, and continued, therefore, miss, please try to be a good person. A real good person wouldn't act like this. You are practically worse than an animal. If the good guy card darkens, I wouldn't find it strange at all. A while later, Lu Ran woke up groggily due to the heat and said, it's so hot. He silently looked at his sweaty body and the blanket covering him, which was the cause. After taking a few seconds to process what was going on, he sat up and complained, oh, holy crap. Then he gritted his teeth and spared no words to curse. Which idiot is this? Covering me with a blanket in such hot weather. Then he looked around and saw not far away. Gu Chuzheng was sitting with her back against a tree, holding a blade of grass in her mouth, as if to say, the idiot who covered you with the blanket is me. Seeing her, Lu Ran's face immediately turned red, thinking to himself, why is it that every time I am in such a miserable state, I run into her? She didn't do it on purpose, did she? But after thinking, a headache struck. He held his forehead, breaking into a cold sweat, and said, my head hurts so much. Suddenly, his attention fell on the watch on his wrist, and he let out an Hearing the noise, Gu Chuzheng didn't open her eyes but asked, awake? Hearing her voice, Lu Ran quickly asked, where did this watch come from? She slowly opened her eyes and replied, I gave it to you. Hearing those words from her, he sank into deep thought. Overthinking, she said gave, not handed over. Why would she suddenly give me this watch for no reason? Then his attention shifted from the watch to the clothes he was wearing. These clothes didn't seem to be the ones he was wearing before. Did she change them for him? At this time, Lu Ran's face was as red as a tomato as he asked her, who changed my clothes for me? Gu Chuzheng calmly answered, probably Yi Xiao. Hearing that 50-50 answer, he thought, what does probably Yi Xiao mean? Does she also not know exactly who changed my clothes? Taking advantage of the momentum, he continued to ask, then what about the blanket? The person in front of him replied, neither fast nor slow me. Hearing the answer, he looked at her and thought, you didn't change my clothes, but the one who wants me to die of heat is you. After thinking, Lu Ran frowned, looking at her, and questioned, why the hell did you cover me with this blanket? At this time, she also looked over and asked back blankly, to keep warm, what else? What else can a blanket do besides keeping warm? Hearing this, he became even more furious and yelled, it's so hot, and you cover me with a blanket to keep warm? Are you complaining that I'm dying too slowly or something? Hearing what the person in front of her said, Gu Chuzheng just blandly replied, you were very cold just now. Hearing this, he rubbed his chin and fell in a deep thought. No matter how he looked at it, it seemed she was talking nonsense. A while later, the two of them went out to where Brother Bao's group was. Seeing her, Brother Bao quickly reported, Miss Gu Chuzheng, we found a large truck along with many weapons and supplies. Once we finish loading the supplies, we can set off. Do we still have to go to City A to find supplies? We might encounter evolved zombies. Hearing this, she only replied, no need, we are returning to the base. Lu Ran, standing behind her, also spoke up and asked, right, what about that evolved zombie? Hearing him ask, Yi Xiao answered while moving supplies, Miss Gu Chuzheng has already dealt with it. Hearing that, he looked at the person next to him suspiciously. Are you really that amazing? Receiving the question, Gu Chuzheng also answered to acknowledge it, yeah. At this time, the system appeared again, holding a scroll with the word modesty written clearly in large letters, and said, modesty is a human virtue. But she coldly looked over and questioned, I'm just that amazing. Why should I be modest? Modesty, I don't have, but when necessary, I can also pretend to have it. Hearing her say that, the system scratched its head and asked, when necessary? But at the same time, He-chung on the side looked at the two and wondered, are there any more zombies like that? Gu Chuzheng slowly explained, there is definitely more than one evolved zombie. Then, like a villainess scaring the person in front of her, she said, don't worry, there definitely will be more. Her words made the person in front of her turn pale with fear, remaining silent and not saying anything. Lu ran on the side, crossing his arms and looking at He-chung, also chimed in, zombies can even evolve to higher levels and summon the rest of the zombies. We were almost surrounded by them just now. This made him so scared that he threw the supply box away. Before fainting, he even said, Mom, how am I going to survive the days to come? Seeing Lu Ran teasing him like that, Gu Chuzheng also spoke up to remind him, Lu Ran, behave yourself. Hearing her say that, he replied with a blushing, sweaty face, I'm not doing anything. Then he slowly approached her, standing in front of her, and stammered, oh, I am very well behaved. Just as he finished speaking, he collapsed on her shoulder. Seeing such an action, Gu Chuzheng couldn't help but think, is this acting spoiled? But then she frowned and said, move away. At this time, Yi Xiao outside noticed something unusual and said, Miss Gu Chuzheng, Lu Ran is a bit weird. Hearing this, she asked, what's wrong with him? Brother Bao at the back chimed in, it seems he has fainted again. Hearing this, she went silent. By this time, it had also gotten dark. At Gu Chuzheng's villa, she unsteadily supported him into the house. Upon reaching the bed, she quickly dropped him down, but he immediately grabbed her hand and pulled her into a hug, treating her just like a teddy bear. Seeing this, Gu Chuzheng immediately called out Lu Ran, but he just frowned and then rubbed his face vigorously against the hollow of her shoulder, leaving her speechless. After a while, he groaned and said, it's uncomfortable. It hurts. Hearing him complain, Gu Chuzheng was also dumbfounded. Thinking hurts? Why would it hurt? Then she sat up, held the hand of the person in front of her, and said coldly, even if it hurts, I can't help you. Fend for yourself. After saying that, she tossed him aside. But just then, the vase on the cabinet crashed to the ground and shattered. This coincidence made her sit on the bed in shock for a moment. And then she exclaimed, is this his ability? Mental power? But she quickly denied it in her head, no, that's not right. Mental power cannot control objects. Instead, it's more like a psychokinesis ability. She then looked at the delirious person in front of her and continued to ponder. But whether it's mental power or psychokinesis, they are both extremely rare S-class abilities. At this moment, as soon as the system appeared, it was questioned by Gu Chuzheng. In the data you gave me, the ability Lu Ran awakened was a mutated lightning attribute ability with extremely powerful destructive force. Why did it change? Hearing the questioning from the person in front of it, it explained, Miss, you can't just rely entirely on the data. Even a tiny change will have an impact. The data is only to help you understand the situation better. It can only be used as a reference. Hearing that, she couldn't suppress her anger and directed more endearing words at it. Fuck it. The system sat nearby, taking pleasure in watching her get angry. Suddenly, his hand grabbed her shirt tightly, and a weak voice echoed, it hurts. It hurts so much. But then Gu Chuzheng pried his hand off. At this moment, the objects in the room floated in midair. Seeing this, the system also looked bewildered and said, is his ability out of control? Or is he leveling up? She, while holding the hand that was casting Lu Ran's ability, replied, I don't have an ability. I don't know. Then it cried out in panic, Miss, the good guy card is not going to make it. Gu Chuzheng hurriedly checked the person in front of her. Then she pulled out the red crystal core of the mutated zombie from this morning and said, is this thing useful? But how do ability users absorb the ability? Chew it to pieces and swallow it. After a few seconds of hesitation, she stuffed the crystal core into Lu Rant's mouth while saying, "Whatever, just swallow it directly." It was already midnight, and he also woke up groggily. Seeing himself being hugged to sleep by Gu Chuzheng, he was startled. After waking up, Lu Ran closed his eyes again. Suddenly, Gu Chuzheng's voice rang out. Awake? Realizing he was discovered, the man who was hugging the person next to him thought, "She's not asleep." He then looked up at her with a blushing, shy face, but she didn't scold him. She just gently rubbed his head and said, "Don't hug so tightly. It's uncomfortable." Gu Chuzheng's actions made the person in her arms space out for a few seconds. After a moment, she continued, "Your ability." Hearing this, Lu Rant's body involuntarily trembled. Then he quickly sat up, used his hand to cover her mouth, and begged, "Can you please not tell anyone about my ability?" Finding it strange, she asked back why, but at this time, the person in front of her pulled out his ultimate move. He winked at her and said, "You are a good person. You have to help me keep this secret, okay?" As soon as Lu Ran finished speaking, the system also appeared and added, "You must fulfill all the requests of the good guy card. You must take good care of the good guy card." Hearing what the system said, Gu Chuzheng was silent for a while before answering him. "Yeah." He now smiled brightly because his request was fulfilled, but suddenly received a bonus kiss, causing the young man to widen his eyes and stare blankly. The system on the side saw this and hurriedly covered its eyes, but covering them was as good as not covering them. After the kiss, Lu Ran touched his lips like a shy maiden and stammered, "You. Why did you kiss me?" Meanwhile, Gu Chuzheng, like a hooligan, used her robust logic to answer. It felt comfortable. Hearing this, he became even more flustered and said, "What do you mean comfortable? You are a girl. How can you be like this?" But after lowering his head, his thoughts conflicted like they were punching each other. Damn it. But I also felt comfortable. Seeing the person next to her zoning out again, she hugged him like a teddy bear and said, "Go to sleep." Lu Ran's face turned blank as he replied, "I guess I really have to get some sleep now." But in his heart, he thought, "This girl definitely has intentions of acting improperly with me." Lying down for a bit, he squirmed and said, "Let go of me." Seeing this, Gu Chuzheng asked back why. "Don't like it? Then you can kiss me back." Receiving the challenging words from the person hugging him made the person being hugged speechless. A moment later, he replied, "Forget it, let's just sleep." The next day, large container trucks drove into the Qing'an base. The people present couldn't help but exclaim, "Which Team 5 is this? How could they bring back so many things?" Another person chimed in, "There are several more trucks behind." From another corner, someone also spoke up, "I heard there are several trucks of supplies. How can our luck be so good? I heard there were very few casualties." Suddenly, a group of armed people blocked the path of Gu Chuzheng's convoy, ordering them to stop. A middle-aged man with a shiny bald head walked out, adjusting his tie. He was Minister Feng of the base. Glancing at the container trucks, he said, "The origin of these supplies is unclear. They will be taken into custody by the base's military." Hearing this absurdity, Brother Bao climbed down from the truck and questioned, "We worked hard to bring these things here. On what grounds must we hand them over to the base?" He Chung, standing aside, whispered to Brother Bao, "But there are so many of them. We definitely can't beat them. What should we do?" Some onlookers outside couldn't help but feel sorry for them. They're doomed. Minister Feng is here. Yi Shao, standing aside, unreservedly cursed, "Shameless bunch." Seeing the soft approach fail, he pointed at Brother Bao's group and ordered the people behind him, "Why waste words? Take the people as well. Lock them all up for me." Just as the tension peaked, a voice echoed from behind the trucks, "Who dares to touch my people?" Gu Chuzheng walked out from the back and questioned. Upon arriving, she looked at Minister Feng's runway-like bald head and said, "You are quite authoritative, aren't you?" Seeing her step out, he immediately asked, "Young lady, are you the person in charge of this Team 5? Gu Chuzheng answered frankly, "Neither fast nor slow, that's right. What do you want?" Hearing this, his face darkened, and he angrily yelled at the group, "You people are truly insane." He then pointed at the people in front of him and fabricated a story to frame them. "You got these supplies by resorting to violence and robbing your comrades." Hearing his words, the surrounding crowd also started to whisper among themselves. Hearing these baseless fabrications, she immediately retorted, "Resorting to violence against whom? Where are our comrades?" At this moment, Minister Feng slowly stroked his beard, looked at Gu Chuzheng's group, and ordered, "Hand over all these supplies and leave the base, and we will not pursue this matter further." Hearing this, the battle spirit in her surged. She raised her hand and said, "Prepare to fight." Seeing this, he was terrified. The bald old man was only good at paying lip service, but his guts were as small as an ant's. He quickly hid behind a subordinate and negotiated in a low voice with those on Gu Chuzheng's side. "Everyone, don't fight. This matter has nothing to do with you. This girl has a vicious heart. As long as you leave here immediately, we guarantee that you will not only be treated better, but also receive a share of these supplies." Suddenly, another voice rang out from behind him. "Who are you saying has a vicious heart?" At this time, the bald man was still busy, cursing the people in front of him, and didn't hear the other party. Minister Fong walked over and asked again, "Who are you saying has a vicious heart?" Seeing the newcomer, Minister Fong, who was already timid, trembled even more and stammered cowardly. "Minister Fong, sir, why are you here?" Then he pointed at her and continued to frame her. "Minister Fong, it's this girl. She used violence against her comrades outside the base. Miss Ning was the one who tipped me off. Someone as vicious as her must be driven out of the base." After hearing the bald old man's fabricated words, Minister Fong frowned, snorted, and said, "Seeing so many supplies, I'm sure many people are green with envy." At this moment, Gu Chuzheng also spoke up from the side. "Minister Fong, all these supplies are to be donated to the base." Hearing her words made him unable to process it in time, exclaiming, "Huh?" Minister Fong, hearing this from the side, was so frightened that he broke into a sweat and even sputtered while speaking. "To donate it to the base? What kind of joke are you playing?" Minister Fong also looked at her to confirm. "Miss Chuzheng, are all these supplies being donated to the base?" She just replied indifferently, "Yes," but then she crossed her arms, closed her eyes, and cursed the system in her heart. "It's a mission issued by that bastard system. If I don't do it, I'll be pulled back. I definitely don't want to be pulled back." Upon receiving an exact answer, he smiled brightly at the person in front of him and said, "Then thank you, Miss Chuzheng. The base can hold out for a while longer." But how could someone who always seeks revenge for the smallest grievance like Gu Chuzheng easily let the bald old man off? She pointed at him and looked at Minister Fong, asking Minister Fong, "These people falsely accused me out of nowhere. Can you let me handle them myself?" Hearing the question, he didn't even need to think. He glanced at Minister Fong, his hands clenched into fists, and replied, "Of course. Rest assured, Miss Chuzheng, I will handle this matter strictly and won't let you suffer any loss." Meanwhile, at Ningyu's villa, her door was suddenly opened. Both men and women entered together. Seeing people come in, she arrogantly put her hands on her hips and asked, "What do you want?" At this moment, Gu Chuzheng stood opposite her. On either side were Brother Yong and Brother Bao, weapons in hand, ready for combat at her command. She coldly looked at Ningyu and snapped her fingers. Minister Fong was quickly brought in by the other two. Then, Gu Chuzheng looked at the person in front of her and questioned, "Did you order him?" Hearing this, she felt a bit guilty but quickly denied it. "Why would I order him to do anything? I don't know him. Don't talk nonsense. What grudge is there between you and me? Why are you falsely accusing me?" Hearing this, she didn't argue with Ningyu, but looked at the bald old man and asked, "Then you tell me, was it her who ordered you, right?" Caught in the middle, he was so scared that his head was sweating. Then he looked at her without saying a word. Minister Feng's stubbornness angered Brother Bao. He immediately hit him with a blow and yelled, "You're still being stubborn and not talking? Are you going to speak or not?" After taking the beating, he hugged his head and obediently said, "Don't hit me anymore, I'll talk. She was the one who told me to find a way to arrest you. It was all her orders." Seeing her actions exposed, Ningyu gritted her teeth, firmly denied it, and said, "What nonsense are you talking about?" Then she panicked, pointed at Gu Chuzheng's group, and said, "You are falsely accusing me." Fearing another beating, Minister Fong immediately added, "I'm not talking nonsense. She was the one who ordered us." Suddenly, an arm blocked in front of her, calling out, "Miss." It was the base manager. As he stepped in front of Ningyu, he asked, "Are you all right, miss?" Seeing her savior arrive, she seemed to be injected with extra strength. Confidently looking at the people in front of her, she said, "I'm fine. It's great that you're here." But at this moment, another voice rang out, exposing Ning Yu's hypocrisy. "She is not your Mississippi." Gu Chuzheng stepped forward and said, "She is not your Mississippi." Then she looked straight at the base manager and said, "I am a Mississippi." Hearing this, waves of shock surged in Ning Yu's heart. Not only does she remember, but she also knows about this? How is this possible? While she was still immersed in her own doubts, She stood in front of the manager and continued, "The jade pendant she wears was stolen from me. Did you bring a hair sample? Can we go do a DNA test right now?" Ningyu stood at the back, her face turning pale green, covering her mouth without saying a word. The person next to her replied, "Yes, of course we can." At this time, she bowed her head, anxiously thinking, "What should I do?" Meanwhile, all three of them were present at the DNA testing room of the base. Looking at the test reports, he couldn't help but blame himself. He had truly made a mistake. Then he observed Gu Chujing's face again. Looking closely, Gu Chujing's eyebrows do somewhat resemble the master's. He then pondered over the test report indicating Ning Yu's non-biological relationship. But the appraisal result, right when we first found Ning Yu, concluded correctly. He then slammed the pile of papers onto the table. The papers fluttered lightly in the air, but were extremely heavy to her. Her face was now stiff with fear, and tears continuously streamed down. Ning Yu looked at the person in front of her and softly called, "Uncle Jie." But he looked at her with sharp eyes, questioning, "Ning Yu, what is this all about?" Hearing this, she covered her mouth, played dumb, and stammered, I don't know." Then she bowed her head, trying to shift the blame to the manager. "You were the ones who said I was. That's why I don't know anything." Hearing the person behind him shirk responsibility, he grew even angrier and yelled, "I never said that. You were the one who gave me the hair sample, and you still say you don't know." Realizing she was in the wrong, she desperately argued nonsensically. "Then there must have been a mistake during the appraisal. I never said I was her. It was always you guys who said it. What does it have to do with me?" Finding an excuse to argue, she pouted and continued, "It was you guys who made the mistake yourselves. Why are you blaming me?" Hearing the unreasonable arguments of the person next to her, Gu Chujung leisurely played with her hair and said, "Search her. She definitely still has some of my hair on her." Outwardly calm, inwardly, she was already cursing. How much of my hair did Ningyu pull out before? After having someone search Ningyu, 2 bags containing the original owner's hair were found. Now that the evidence was present, she was dragged out by 2 bodyguards, constantly struggling and calling out to the manager, "Uncle Jie." Meanwhile, he now stood in front of Gu Chujung, bowing 45 degrees, and said, "I am truly sorry. Mississippi Mu, Jie has made you suffer. I am truly sorry for what happened before. It was because we couldn't distinguish between real and fake. I hope the miss will punish me." Hearing this, she merely replied indifferently, "It's fine. Can I leave now?" But inwardly, she was irritated, thinking, if the good guy card runs away, it'll be hard to catch him. Hearing this, Uncle Jie quickly said, "Let me escort you back to rest first, Mississippi. How do you want to handle Ningyu?" After a moment of thought, she said, "Kick her out of the base." But her face darkened, angrily thinking, "I can't just kill this person directly, so what should I do?" Suddenly, a brilliant idea popped in her head. She then looked at the person next to her and said, right, shave her head while you're at it." Hearing her request, left Uncle Jie in silent thought. Meanwhile, out on the street, citizens gathered in small groups, chatting. "Have you heard? The battle to seize supplies has turned into a wealthy family drama of the real and fake young miss." Behind them was Ningyu, covering her freshly shaved head and wearing a mask. A young man wearing a cap continued, "Isn't it so? I heard the real young miss is that super good person who donated supplies to the base." A woman to the side also angrily said, and she was almost kicked out of the base by the fake young miss. Another person chimed in, "Exactly. To think there are still such people. They're even scarier than zombies." Hearing the gossip, she frowned, her eyes flashing bloodshot, her hands clenched into fists, thinking to herself, "I am not resigned to this. I am not resigned." Suddenly, Ningyu cried out, "Ah!" She bumped into someone else, causing her hood to fall off. The people present immediately looked over and quickly recognized her, continuously mocking her. "Everyone look, she seems to be that fake young miss. She truly stinks worse than a zombie." On one side, a young man pointed at the crowd, then looked at the person next to him and said, "Captain Ho, look over there, it seems to be Ningyu." He quickly approached and called out, "Ningyu." At this time, she pulled down her mask, looked at the person in front of her with tears welling up in her eyes, and said, "See, Captain Hua." But then, remembering her own state, she immediately covered her face, screamed, and desperately thought, "No, I can't let him see me like this." Then, she ran away sobbing. He also anxiously called after her, "Ningyu." Watching her retreating figure, he couldn't help but wonder to himself, why has Ningyu turned out like this? Then he stubbornly thought, furthermore, she is clearly very kind-hearted, both brave and smart. How could she do such a thing? At Gu Chujing's villa, Lu Ran hid outside the door, watching Brother Yong's group sitting in the room, smoking and playing cards. Seeing him appear, Brother Yong spoke up. Lu Ran, don't even think about running away. Look, the people outside the villa are all my brothers. Where could you possibly run to? He Chung, standing aside, also chimed in. Miss Chu Zheng treats you so well. If I were you, I would obediently listen to Miss Chu Zheng. Hearing him say that, he became visibly angry, pointed at everyone, and said, if you guys like it, just stay. Why won't you let me go? Suddenly, the sound of high heels walking upstairs rang out. The moment Gu Chuzheng stepped in, Brother Yong greeted her. Miss Chuzheng are back. But she didn't greet him back. Instead, she pulled out a bag of crystal cores and said, this is your remuneration. After taking the bag of crystal cores and checking it, Brother Yong looked at her and said, Miss Chuzheng, if there are any good jobs like this in the future, just call us. Hearing this, she merely replied indifferently, yeah. After everyone left, Lu Ran leaned in close to the person sitting on the chair and questioned, why do you want to lock me up? You even had people keep an eye on me. Then he frowned and continued, is it that as long as I feel you are a good person, you will let me go? Hearing about letting him go, Gu Chuzheng thought to herself, the good guy card wants to leave? How is that possible? Having finished her thought, she immediately pulled the person in front of her down and kissed him, leaving the other party dumbfounded. After kissing, she whispered, if you don't think about running away, I won't lock you up. At this moment, Lu Ran's hand swiped quickly towards her. One would think there would be a fight, but no. Our young man hugged the person who forcefully kissed him and questioned, so you're repeatedly kissing me. Did you have my consent? Being hugged unexpectedly, she quickly calmed down, looked straight into the other's eyes, and asked, do I need it? Hearing the question, he became even angrier and continued, need it? I am an individual, not your property. If I don't agree, you can't just kiss me as you please. Hearing him, Gu Chuzheng immediately applied the lesson. In that case, let me ask you now, can I kiss you? Seeing her putting it into practice immediately, Lu Ran wasn't shy either, nodded, and replied, yes, you can. Hearing that, she said, this time I asked, then pulled his body down. He gradually immersed himself in the kiss as the two kissed passionately. Then footsteps echoed, followed by Uncle Jia knocking on the door outside, calling out, Miss, are you in the room? Seeing someone coming, both were startled. While Lu Ran was like a child doing something bad, afraid of being caught by a parent and flustered, Gu Chuzheng hugged his neck like a child begging for a gift, asking, can I kiss you next time? He didn't answer, but demanded the person pulling him, let go of me first. But how could she do it so easily? She pulled tighter and said, agree, and then I will let you go. Seeing her sticking tightly and not letting go, Lu Ran's already red face became even redder, not saying a word. Suddenly, the forgotten person outside the door grasped the door handle and called, Mississippi. The dilemma forced him to immediately compromise. You can. After getting what she wanted, Gu Chuzheng released him, looked at the door, and replied, I'll be right out. Uncle Jia outside, holding the fingerprint lock that had been opened, covered his mouth in amusement and replied, it's nothing, miss. Take your time. But at this time, inside, Gu Chuzheng acted like a female hooligan, staring at the sensitive area of the person in front of her. Her fiery gaze made the other party turn away and asked shyly, what are you looking at? Seeing him like that, she just turned away to open the door, replying, nothing. Meanwhile, Lu Ran uncontrollably slapped himself. After entering, Uncle Jia stated the reason for his visit. Miss, please return to the capital base with us now. It's not safe here. The master over there misses you very much too. But she bluntly replied, I'm not going. I don't want to move. It's troublesome. Seeing that Gu Chuzheng was hard to persuade, he looked at the person sitting next to her. Mr. Lu, can you help me persuade the miss? Hearing this, he broke into a cold sweat, looked at the other party, and replied, I cannot interfere with her decision. At this time, Uncle Jia wanted to say more, but miss. But then he lowered his head in agreement, answering, yes. At this time, outside Gu Chuzheng's house, there was a knock on the door. She was sleeping and sat up irritably, shouting, who has a death wish? After opening the door, she saw Yi Xiao and brother Bao holding weapons without lowering their guard, while He Chung stood looking at her, smiling and greeting her. Then he said sternly, Miss Chuzheng, we saw some things and didn't know who to ask, so we could only come to you. Hearing this, She crossed her arms, looking at the people in front of her, and asked, "What's the matter?" Hearing this, He Chung suggested, "Can we go inside to talk?" Then the four of them went into her house. She sat hugging a pillow and said, "Speak." Brother Bao also spoke up at this time. "Miss Chu Zheng, during our mission 2 days ago, we noticed something not quite right with the zombies." Hearing this, Gu Chuzheng replied bluntly, "Were zombies ever normal?" Hearing her say that, the person next to him quickly explained, "No, Miss Chuzheng, those zombies know how to set traps. We almost couldn't escape at that time. It's truly terrifying." Hearing this much, she propped her head on her hand, closed her eyes, and thought, zombies are already this formidable, and they've even learned the skill of setting traps? At this moment, Brother Bao, sitting to the side, looked at her in confusion and asked, "Miss Chuzheng, do you think that in the future, zombies will also become as smart as us?" Hearing this, Gu Chuzheng glanced at the person who just asked. Then she answered indifferently, "If they're as smart as you, it wouldn't be a problem." Hearing her say that, He Chung and Yi Xiao, sitting on the side, were gloomy and helplessly silent, staring speechlessly at the person who had just spoken. Meanwhile, Brother Bao coughed a few times and replied, "Miss Chuzheng's words are still as piercing." At this time, He Cheng looked at Gu Chuzheng and asked worriedly, "Miss Chuzheng, aren't these zombies evolving a bit too fast? If they bite a few more people, will their IQ gradually increase?" Hearing this, she also pondered and replied, "It is a bit fast. Besides eating all day, what else do zombies know how to do? If they don't evolve, what else can they do?" While she was thinking, the system appeared again with a familiar gift, Main Quest, inviting the young miss to leave the base and establish a base of your own. "I provide crystal cores." Hearing this, her expression turned gloomy, thinking she shouldn't have let these 3 guys in. Then she pouted, hugging her pillow with puffed cheeks, and muttered, "Why treat a pitiful little one like me this way? It has been 1 year and 5 months since the apocalypse began. The zombies' evolution speed exceeds human imagination. They have learned to cooperate. Zombies have even learned how to disguise themselves, so some small bases have fallen." At this time, among the crowd evacuating to another safe place, a voice rang out. "Have you heard? In the north, there's a base called Anrin. I heard the treatment there is very good." The person next to him heard this and said, "The north? Aren't the zombies running from that direction?" The other person quickly confirmed, "That's right, but the zombies have all run over to this side. So aren't there fewer zombies in the north?" Hearing the other's reasoning, the person thought for a moment and replied, "Makes sense." Then he looked at the man wearing a hat and asked further, "Where is that base located? Who is the leader?" Hearing the question, the person next to him answered unhurriedly, "I don't know the specific address. I just know the leader's name is Chuzheng. I heard she has a lot of crystal cores, many ability users under her, and they are all high-level ability users." Hearing the necessary information, he excitedly said, "Hearing you talk makes me want to go there immediately." The man wearing the hat heard this and replied, "Aren't we heading north? Who knows? Maybe we can get there." On this side, Ningyu's hand clenched tightly. She was angry, her face darkened, and she gritted her teeth, saying, "The thing I tried so hard to fight for." Yet after she snatched it back, she casually threw it away. Suddenly, another voice called her, "Ningyu, the boss is calling you." Hearing the other person call, she was still immersed in her anger. After calming down, she asked, "What is it?" The girl calling Ningyu was a girl dressed with personality, sporting artistic tattoos. Standing there, she looked at her contemptuously and replied, "How would I know? Don't you hover in front of the boss all day? You don't even know what the boss wants you to do?" After hearing that, she answered, "I know." At this time, the girl with tattoos turned to leave, not forgetting to look at Ningyu and say, "Yeah, let's see how long you can be arrogant." After a while, Ningyu went to meet the person called the boss. She timidly said, "Boss, you called me. Is there something the matter?" Hearing her voice, he turned around, putting out his cigarette while asking, "Ningyu, I treat you well, don't I?" Hearing the question, she broke into a cold sweat and answered yes. Receiving the answer, he became even more furious and yelled, "Since it's like that, why did you dare to steal my stuff? Who gave you the guts?" Hearing what the person in front of her said, made Ningyu stare blankly and ask back, "Boss, what are you talking about?" At this time, a man behind him named Big Brother leaned close to his ear, looking at her with a smug face, and said, "Ningyu, I saw you take those crystal cores the boss found last time with my own eyes. Just confess." Hearing this, his face darkened even more. Hearing this, Ningyu pointed at herself and denied, "I didn't." Then she frowned and said, "You guys are framing me. At this time, the girl who called her earlier also stepped forward from behind Big Brother, put both hands on his shoulders, and said, "Boss, search her." Hearing this, he looked at the person in front of him with a murderous glare and said, "Search." Then from her body, the other party pulled out a handful of crystal cores and said, "Ningyu, what else do you have to say? We have both the witness and physical evidence." Seeing this, her face darkened, and she said, "How is that possible? I didn't take it." Since there was both witness and physical evidence, Big Brother gave the order, "Take her down for me." Ningyu, in tears at this moment, said no. Just then, the girl watching the scene held a syringe with a wicked face and quickly injected it into the other party. Ningyu dazedly looked at the person in front of her and said, "It's you." The girl looked at the person slumped in the chair and said, "On what basis do you get to live a healthy life while we have to suffer?" After complaining, she leaned close to Ningyu's ear and said, "Now, slowly enjoy it." Ningyu, at the Aaron base. At this time, Lu Ran was standing outside the base muttering. Aaron was dazed when a voice called out, "Lu Ran." Hearing someone call him, he looked in that direction. From the crowd entering the base, a girl stepped out, looked at Lu Ran, and said, "It's so good that you're still safe." That was a girl from Lu Ran's old team. Just as she spoke, a person blocked her path. Gu Chuzheng stood in front of him, looked over, and asked, "Do you know her?" Hearing the question, he indifferently looked away and replied, "An old classmate, but we're not close." Hearing every word he said made her freeze in a daze. After hearing the answer, Gu Chuzheng pulled his hand and walked away. "Let's go then." But before leaving, he didn't forget to look back at the person behind and say, "Thank you guys for driving me away in the beginning." After he left, a group of people approached her. A short-haired man looked at her and said, "That is Gu Chuzheng, the founder of Amron Base." The other woman quickly sighed with emotion, suddenly so lucky. As for the person who had firmly driven Lu Ran away in the beginning, he curled his lip and said, "Tisich, being kept by a woman like a gigolo, what's so good about that? All of a man's dignity has been thrown away by him, relying only on his looks." Hearing him say that, the girl next to him contemptuously said, "If you can't eat the grapes, you say the grapes are sour?" Hearing the person next to her say that, he could only get angry but not say anything. Over here, Gu Chuzheng held his hand and pulled him along. At this time, Lu Ran looked at her and said, "Actually, when I was driven away by them, I really hated them." Hearing that, she crossed her arms, angrily turned to go back, and said, "Then I'll go deal with them." But she was quickly pulled back by the person next to her. They looked at her with a face full of smiles and said, "It's not necessary anymore." At this time, it was late at night. Lu Ran lay next to her, watching her sleep soundly. Suddenly, Gu Chuzheng, who was fast asleep, sleep-talked Lu Ran, "If you still want to run away, I'll break your legs." Hearing her speak, he couldn't help but laugh, then leaned close to her, raised her chin with one hand, and guaranteed, "To keep my legs intact, I won't run anymore." The next day, sun and wind ravined a pour into Gu Chuzheng and Lu Ran's bedroom. At this time, she woke up groggily, and before her eyes was the young man who was forcefully kissing her. Then he buried his head in her neck, making her confused as she said, "What are you doing? It's early in the morning. Can't you let someone sleep?" At this time, he coquettishly said, "They all say you're keeping me, relying entirely on my looks, and they even call me a disaster. If I don't seduce you, I'd really be doing a disservice to this title." Hearing him say that, she could only stay silent and not reply. And he, taking advantage of the situation, continuously kissed her sensitive spots. Then Gu Chuzheng hugged him and said, all right, stop messing around. Be good." But at this moment, after being coaxed, he demanded, "I want to hear you say it." She lifted the head of the person in her arms and said, "Doing this kind of thing too much is not good. It will harm the body." Hearing Gu Chuzheng say that, he immediately affirmed, "My body is very healthy. Are you the one who can't?" Hearing Lu Ran say that, she fell silent, thinking in her head, "Who can't? Who can't?" Then her competitive nature flared up. She flipped over, pinned the other party down, and questioned, "Who did you say can't?" Then there was a scene of clothes flying everywhere and restricted for children to watch. This episode ends here. If you found it interesting, please give me a like and a share so I can have more motivation to make more videos. Remember to click follow to watch the next episodes. Wishing you a day full of energy.